Hello and welcome back to the Lineage Legacy podcast. This is Francisco Aguilar as your host today. And today I have the wonderful time and opportunity to interview a good friend today, Steve Caliguri. Steve, welcome onto the podcast. Thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate taking time out of your day and taking time out of your life to look into your family history and sharing that with us. As you know, that this podcast is aiming to cement family legacy and history, and just make sure that the stories are kept alive, and you can share this with family, with friends, with future generations to come that want to know more about you. And I think there will also be people out there that will connect with you, that will have similarities in culture and upbringing and in other things. So again, thank you very much. um, Let me tell the people a little bit how we met. um, Actually, I have been bartending for a few years, and we met at Avant in Rancho Bernardo, which is inside the Rancho Bernardo Inn. So it's a hotel, and bartended there. And you would come in with your wife. So shout out, Beth. I love you guys. So you would come in with her, and you guys had been going in there for a few years. That's your Friday night spot, and so
Exactly.
I was blessed and fortunate to meet you guys and serve you guys martinis, and then moving on to wine, and then you know
Yeah, you know our progression on that,
yeah,
right? Good to
Vespers and martinis, and then we'll go on to Pinot Grigio and Sauvignon Blanc.
exactly. Yeah.
So that's how we met, and yeah, man, we just connected ever since. And I appreciate you guys like always reaching out, making sure that we're doing good. And I can't forget that Beth. See, I'm like confusing Steve and Beth.
Exactly.
Beth makes some amazing cookies and cupcakes. She's a really good baker, and so thank you guys for always taking care of us and bringing in
Yeah.
desserts and stuff.
Well, she always wants to make sure she's taking care of the people that are taking care of us. So
Yeah.
you guys did a tremendous job, and
Well, you guys.
and you're missed. Yeah, definitely missed.
Well, you guys are doing a great job of taking care of us. I'll tell you that. But again, yeah, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you, and this means a lot.
Good. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate your interest in the legacy.
Of course. So, for those listening, um, Steve, you are Italian, well, from Italian descent, right?
Correct.
Uh, but
100%.
but you are living here in San Diego. You've been here in San Diego for a long time, by way of Massachusetts, kind of greater Boston area.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So we want to get to know a little bit about your history, about your family, about your lineage, and if I'm not mistaken, you got a little information from your great grandparents, or not from them, but of your great grandparents, and their migration from Italy to the United States. And yeah, if you want to start off with that a little bit, and let us know who they
Sure.
are.
Sure. Yeah. So 100% Italian. My mom's family is from Sicily. My dad's family is from Calabria. My grandparents, three of my grandparents came over from Italy right around the turn of the century. So both my grandmothers and my grandfather on my dad's side came over right around the turn of the century. My other grandfather, my mom's side, was actually born here, right before the turn of the century. His father or parents came over just before that. So
Hmm.
so I'm really kind of, I guess, second generation Italian or
Yeah,
American. So
American.
yeah, so it's kind of unusual to think of that now.
Yeah.
But my grandparents that came over, I think for the most part, the people that were coming, from Italy, times were tough, right? It was late 1800s, right around the turn of the century. Economies aren't doing great in Europe, and America was the kind of the bastion for where you wanted to be, right? There was all this opportunity here, so they came here for that. So they were looking to build a better life by coming to America. I do think my grandfather on my dad's side might have been also escaping a little bit of trouble he might have been in Italy as well. So it kind of we're at a double kill two birds one stone.
Yeah.
But they came over here for the opportunities,
Mhm.
and we were able to trace them back on Ancestry.com. You could see the boats they came over, and they landed in Ellis Island, like probably 99% of the people that probably came from Italy at the time or Europe and from the time, and then eventually made their way into the Boston area. So my mom's family was kind of in the northern part of Boston, and my dad family was really kind of right just west of Boston in the Newton area, so Newton Watertown area, so just outside of Boston.
Okay.
And that's where my dad, grew up. My mom was, like I said, just a little bit north of Boston, and but both had born right in the area of Boston. My dad was born, at his parents' house,
Hmm.
so he didn't go to a hospital. My mom was actually born in a hospital though, so
Yeah.
um,
So this was so yeah, this was in the early 1900s, right?
yeah,
That your grandparents came over, at least on your father's side.
correct.
Um, so they came over for a better future for their families. I mean, during that time, there's better economy. Um, but then right during this time as well, World War One is starting to happen. Late 19 or
Early on.
middle 19 like 1914 through 1918. I think you mentioned earlier in the conversation that your grandfather was in the military during World War One, right?
Exactly. So my grandfather on my dad's side, he joined the army, joined World War One as an American soldier. We believe predominantly to get his U.S. citizenship by joining the army. So he became, an American at that point by joining the army and fought, on the side of the America. Obviously went to Europe and fought there.
Yeah. So do we know the names of your grandparents? Were
Yeah.
you able to kind of get
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
information?
So I was lucky enough to know my grandparents at least a little bit
Oh, nice.
as a kid. I never knew my grandmother on my mom's side. She died fairly young. Her name was Conchetta. On my dad's side, my grandmother was Rose, and my grandfather was Salvatore. And I'm gonna forget my other grandfather's name. Obviously, it slipped my mind. I'll probably remember it halfway through
Through the
the
podcast.
discussion here, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Salvatore was one of the ones that came over in the ship from Italy, from the Calabria area,
correct.
and then he joined the military. Was he? Do you know anything about his stories or any about like his time during the military?
Don't know much about his time in the military, but after that, he actually had a shop that was doing basically like duct work, sheet metal work in Boston. So it's in the north end of Boston, the Italian section of Boston. He had a shop there where he worked for I think quite some time. My dad worked for him for a little while as well, but that was kind of you didn't know much about kind of his history to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was just a regular person.
Well, yeah, I know him because we actually grew up. So um, my dad bought a two-family house for my grandparents, when I was very young. Actually, it might have been before I was born. And so we lived right next door to my grandparents for some time. So as a young kid, I remember one of the early memories I have is running over to my grandparents' side of the house because my grandfather would make eggnog for us.
Mm,
So it was delicious eggnog. We loved it, and my parents were always like, "Yeah, go over and have eggnog." And then they finally realized one of the reasons we probably loved it so much because my grandfather was putting whiskey in the eggnog so we could have eggnog the way it was supposed to be made, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he wasn't gonna, take out the whiskey just for the grandkids. He's like
yeah.
making sure that everyone gets a
Everyone
good,
has to get it right.
yeah, a
You
good
got to
piece
make
of
it, make
it.
it right. I don't care whether you're 8 years old or
Yeah,
20 years old. You get it made right.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, and then your parents would probably be like, "Okay, go ahead. You gotta go to sleep earlier
yeah.
tonight."
Until they knew that, then I
Yeah.
think they stopped us from having eggnog over there.
That's funny. So after the war, or after your grandfather's Salvatore's time in the military, he came back and started his business in the sheet metal and his shop and everything. Do we know how Salvatore found his wife, or how he met his wife, in better words?
Yeah, I don't know how he met my grandmother. To be honest,
No.
I had no idea. Yeah.
But how many
Yeah.
kids did they
So
have?
they had, let's see, what was it? So they would have been three boys and the two girls.
And one of the boys being your
One
father.
of the boys, obviously my dad. Yeah.
And what are the names?
Actually, there was four boys, and my dad being one of them. So Frank, Salvatore, Joe. My dad was Albert. Um, my aunt Sadie, and it's funny I can't remember the other aunt's name.
So
Yeah,
there's another Salvatore, an
yeah,
Uncle
yeah,
Salvatore,
yeah.
named after your
My
grandfather.
grandfather. Yeah.
So Joe being the oldest,
Joe was actually the
the
youngest. So
youngest.
I think Frank was the oldest. My dad was somewhere in the middle.
Your dad
Actually,
is
I think my aunt Sadie was actually the oldest
okay.
of the boys. Although Frank, I think, was the oldest. And Frank was actually, he was in World War II. He actually fought in the Battle of the Bulge.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your dad's name again? Remind me.
Albert, Al.
Albert.
Yeah,
Al.
yeah.
Okay. So you had a pretty big family, or your dad had a pretty big family growing up. They was not, you know, boring at all. Maybe in the household.
I'm sure. Yeah. So I mean, obviously they grew up a lot during kind of depression times. My dad was born in 1918, so
Hmm.
he kind of lived through a lot of the depression. So
Right
yeah,
after the war finished.
yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah.
don't think it didn't have the easiest life, but you know, from what I can gather, they seem to have a happy, fun time of doing things. Some of the stories he'd tell us about just doing crazy stuff with his young friends at the time.
Yeah. And this is in the Boston area.
Yeah.
So, um, how was your dad's upbringing? I guess. I mean, we can still stick on to your grandfather, but what more can we add to your grandfather's story?
Not not much that we can really that we should talk about. There was always, I guess, the hint of not of doing kind of a little bit of how to call 'em, side life kind of work,
Mhm.
called that. So I knew one of the things that happened, that in the basement of our house, long before I was born, when I think before my dad was even married to my mom, they would have card games in the basement of the
Mm.
house. So I think they had little side gigs going on
Yeah,
there a
yeah.
bit.
It was a
Yeah,
casino in there.
yeah, kind of. So it was something.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you're in the time during a Great
yeah,
Depression. People needed to, find, something to do and make money as well.
yeah.
So I think not only he wasn't the only one doing
Oh,
it. There was probably a lot of basements that
that,
were
that I'm sure there's a lot. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of
yeah,
basements that
yeah,
were having some late night
yeah,
visitors over and card
yeah.
playing going on. So, and at what age did your grandfather pass away, or of what did he pass away? If we're able to share that.
Yeah, no, he died in, God, I can't remember. It's probably like the 70s, I guess. And he was in his I think it was about early to mid 80s.
Mm,
So he was fairly old. And what happened was that it was like many elderly people, right? Had an accident, fell down, and that was kind of the beginning of the end.
yeah,
I mean, other than that, he was, I think, pretty healthy right up until that happened.
yeah.
And my grandmother, his wife, lived to be, I think it was 103.
Wow.
So, and then my grandfather on my mom's side, he was in his kind of early 90s, I think it was, when he passed away.
Oh, wow.
So reasonably good genes, except like I said, my grandmother on my mom's side died fairly young. She was only in her, I think, early 50s, maybe even her 40s.
That's
Yeah,
pretty young for back
yeah,
in the day.
yeah.
And so then I'm assuming that the during the time that your grandfather, you know, was raising your dad and his family, it was very Italian, right? Very Italian times. But do you have any memories um with your grandfather that you can remember?
Yeah, I'd say nothing specific, but always remembered, you do a lot of stuff with just family, right?
Hmm.
So there was always, it was never kind of just one or two people. It was always a group. So you always had kind of everyone there. And it was always around food. So there was always be plenty of food. And whether it was my dad's side or my mom's side, it was the same thing. There was always a big group of people for any kind of event.
Hmm.
It was never a small thing. But it was also, I think, most of the time was fairly simple. It wasn't like you were having gourmet meals, right? It was just hearty food. It's the pasta and the meatballs and cold cuts and
Yeah,
things like that. So, but it was just always just food was
yeah.
kind of always a centerpiece of every
It
event.
didn't it didn't take a birthday party or a big special event to get the family together.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was, and back then, the families were my dad's side especially, and part of my mom's family still stayed, in the Boston area, so people were close by, so it was easy to kind of get people together. It wasn't like, things are today where people kind of get spread apart, fairly quickly, and it's a big hassle to get together.
Yeah.
So people were close by, so it made it a little easier.
So do you remember times at your house having family over all the time and,
Yeah,
having cousins over
it
and
was always funny because I think most of the time I was at other people's houses. It was
Oh.
my aunt's houses would do it a lot,
Mhm.
um, and I guess one of them, some of them, sorry, were my great aunt's houses. So it's usually kind of at other people's
Yeah.
places more so than ours. And one of them, one set of aunts on my mom's side, they actually had a place down in Cape Cod. So that was always kind of a nice event place to go to get people together and get the family. Then others were in East Boston, and they were probably a little bit older, so they didn't drive, so you kinda go there for the
Mhm.
events. And then, eventually, my grandparents moved to another house in Newton that was a lot bigger, had a big backyard, they had a pool, so that became a nice, a spot that you'd head to as well.
That's where everyone went
Yeah,
after.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And that's where you guys started kind of cementing your family history in Newton
Yeah,
once they bought that house there.
exactly. So so Newton, yeah, my dad was born, in a house in Newton about 2 blocks maybe 4 blocks away from the house I grew up in,
Mhm.
that my dad bought as a young man, I guess, after the war.
Yeah. And um so then your grandfather ended up passing away during his 80s. Your grandmother lived up to over 100 years old. And obviously it was a big family. During that time, do you know how old your father was when your grandfather passed away?
Oh, he had to be so that probably would have been so I'm guessing he would have been probably around 60 plus or minus. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so he wasn't,
Yeah.
everyone was old enough to
Oh, yeah.
have their time with him and
Oh,
great
absolutely. Yeah,
experiences and
absolutely. My dad had a really good relationship with his father, my grandfather.
oh, that's good.
They seemed to share a lot, and I don't know if it had to do because of their war history together, but whatever it was, they seemed to have a pretty close
Yeah,
relationship.
nice. And so now talking about that war history too, we know that your father also became or went into the military as well, and he fought in World War II, or he
Yeah,
was in the military during the World War II times, while your grandfather was in the military during World War
right.
One.
Yeah,
So pretty crazy that you have you know
yeah.
uh, two generations within one family be in two
In both
different world
world wars.
wars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's true. Yeah, my dad, joined. God, I can't remember 19 right before. I guess it was right after Japanese kind of bombed Pearl Harbor. So he joined the military, got into the army, and ended up going to Guadalcanal. So he actually fought in Guadalcanal alongside the Marines at the time.
Hmm.
So he actually saw, and he never talked about it much. There's only kind of a few stories he'd ever share. But he saw I think, some real, hardships,
Yeah.
during the war.
Some real combat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you was he maybe he must have been young when he joined the military then, huh?
So he was, so he would have been still, in his late 20s, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was born in 1918.
Uh-huh.
So in 44, that would have made him what,
Yeah.
26, 27?
26,
Yeah.
27.
Yeah.
So then he joined the military, saw some battles.
Yeah.
Um at that time he hadn't met your mother yet.
No,
Him
no.
it happened
It
after.
was after the war is when he met my mom. Yeah.
Okay.
So, especially for the time, I mean, he was fairly older, when he got married, right? So had to be what, he would have been 30. So they got married in 22, I think. No, when was it? No, I mean, not 22, obviously. So they got married. I'm trying to remember the date now. But he would have been probably in his 30, right around 30, about 30, 31 when he got married.
Mhm.
So, which is pretty old, I think, for, back in the 40s.
Back in the day,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
50, whatever.
nowadays
Yeah,
everyone's trying to get married in the 30s
yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
everyone was getting married in their 18s,
Yeah, exactly.
19s,
Yeah,
20s, kind
yeah,
of latest back in the day.
yeah,
It was more socially accepted, I
Yeah.
guess, to get married at an early age.
Yeah,
It was
absolutely.
also easier, right?
Yeah, I think
Nowadays,
just different times, I think,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
different
yeah,
times.
yeah,
Nowadays, like, someone can barely pay rent
yeah,
here in California,
yeah,
and
exactly.
let alone, you know, pay a
Raise a
whole
family,
wedding.
yeah.
Yeah, raise a
Yeah,
family, right?
yeah.
So then your father Al, he was in the military for quite a few years, maybe until the war
Yeah,
ended.
so it's just, yeah, I think in realistic, it's like a few years, right? So the war, yeah, he
Yeah,
went in right after, Pearl Harbor and left, I think, right after 45, 46, I guess. So probably like 2 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot happens in 2 years,
Yeah.
especially during a wartime,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So after your father came back from overseas, do you know at what time or when he met your mother or where they met?
I know where they met. I don't know the exact time frame, but it was
Okay,
kind of, it was interesting because I think his family and my mom's family didn't directly know each other, but I think they had kind of saw a few cousins or second cousins in common. So it was kind of, I'll call them part of a very extended family.
right.
And I think they obviously knew both my dad and my mom, and thought they'd make, I think, a good couple. But my dad was buying tires, and my mom worked at a tire shop, and that's how my dad met her when he went in to buy his tires. And then I think kind of the extended cousins and second cousins tried to keep getting them together to see where it would go, and finally it ended up in getting in a marriage, obviously.
One was probably interested in the other one when they walked in, and
I would
there
think so.
was a,
Yeah.
"Hey, let him know who I am," you
Yeah,
know?
probably. Yeah.
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 And so, that was the beginning of them. Um, then right after, I mean, I don't know if you ever talked to your mom or your dad about this. So they kind of dated for a while. And where do you guys come in the picture?
Yeah, so my oldest brother, who passed away, what, 2 years ago now, or a year and a half. So he was born in 1950.
1950.
So
And what's his
so
name? What
he
was his
he was
name?
now Al. So he was named after my dad.
Okay.
So he was born in 1950, and then my middle brother was not born until 1959. So it's kind of a fairly extended gap there. And then I was born in 62. So they had three boys. So it was
Hmm.
so I think they had my oldest brother fairly soon after they were married, and then for whatever reasons things got extended for the middle one.
Hmm. And what was your father's of work life after coming back from the military?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So I think originally he started working again for with my grandfather in the sheet metal
Mm.
business, but then he decided he wanted, and I think his mother influenced this quite a bit, is what I gathered from some of the discussions as a child, that having a more she just thought it would be better to have a job with like that created a pension and things like that versus being more entrepreneurial, which is very different from I think
Yeah.
what most people do today.
Right.
So he changed, I'll call it careers, but he ended up working for the city of Newton, working in the school system for custodial stuff. So, but that allowed him to get the a pension that he could retire on, and he retired, I guess, probably fairly early, probably in his late 50s, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then your brother was born Al, and who was born right after
So
Al?
so my brother Ed, Edward, was born in 59.
Hmm.
So he was born in 59, and then I was born 3 years after that.
Al being Albert,
Yeah. So
Ed
Al, yeah,
being Edward,
yep, yeah,
and you being
Stephen,
Stephen. Yes, I know
yeah,
I know it's Stephen, I believe, but people know you by Steve,
Steve, yeah,
and it sounds like there's a commonality in maybe the Italian culture is that you're calling the person by a short version of their
of course,
name.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So Al,
Al, yeah, so it's
Ed,
Al,
Steve.
yep.
Yeah. So that's pretty common in the Italian culture then, huh?
And I don't know if it's just maybe just common for the time period.
Oh, maybe.
Thing, yeah,
Yeah, maybe
yeah,
for the time.
yeah,
Um, so and it's just the three of you?
yeah. So we just had three boys. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And during this time, you guys are already living in Newton.
Yep. So we lived in the house that my dad mostly grew up in as a child. So we lived there, and my dad lived there right up until the end, until he kind of had to move out.
Mhm.
So lived in the same place. I said we grew up 4 blocks away from where my dad grew up as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is where your grandfather Salvatore
Yeah.
bought his
Bought his house
bought
originally.
his
Yeah.
house. Okay.
Yeah.
And what were your guys' memories of growing up in Newton? Describe to us a little bit about Newton. What is this, Massachusetts,
So
right?
yeah, so so Newton, I mean, a lot of people, Newton's kind of an interesting. So it's just it's a western suburb just outside of Boston. Um, we grew up in not surprising, a section of Newton that they call the Lake, or Nonantum, and it's the Italian section.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of very Italian. They still have Italian festivals there today. I was just reading about it online, the most recent one. So it was we're in the Italian section. I'd say it's probably just a middle class section. Newton is known more for kind of some of the more affluent areas
Mm-hmm.
of Newton, like called Chestnut Hill and things like that, that are like I said, pretty affluent suburbs of Boston. But we were kind of on the corner of Watertown, Brighton, and Newton is where we grew up, right along the Charles River. So it was kind of a it's obviously grown up a lot more now, but the area we had, because it was near the Charles River, there was baseball parks that were we could walk to as little kids. Even as little kids, we can get on the tee and we can go into Fenway Park to see baseball
Oh wow.
games. But we, I think as a kid, we used to spend a lot of time, like I said, at the ballpark, or down by the Charles River, whatever, fishing or getting into trouble or not.
Yeah. So it was always a pretty good active childhood lifestyle that you guys
Yeah,
had.
yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of typical stuff you would have done in New England, playing street hockey, during the summer and the road,
Right.
and ice hockey in the winter and
Yeah.
skating on the lake and the river and stuff. Yeah.
And was this still very common for the families to gather together in each other's homes to, the gatherings and
Yeah, I'd say it that kind of lasted, from, if memory serves me right, it's probably until maybe a little bit before kind of I went to high school. And then after that, I think things kind of, I don't want to say dissipated, but and I think it's more just because kids get older, and I think culturally things were changing, right? You didn't, it just kind of changed the way you kind of lifestyles were.
right.
So that seemed to kind of just stop. I'd say probably right before I was in high school, so maybe kind of seventh grade, sixth, seventh grade kind of area time.
Hmm. And was there any cousins that you were raised with? Was your father the only one that stayed in Newton, or your uncles
So
and aunts, were they also still
so
in
we
the
had
area?
yeah we had one uncle and one aunt that stayed in the Newton area, and there was two cousins, two girls, so we'd see them fairly frequently. Um, but on my mom's side, even though her family ended up moving to California, so
Hmm.
a lot of that kind of that's why I don't have as many stories about a lot of my mom's side, because they moved when I was fairly young to California. But occasionally we go meet them, so I'd get to spend time with cousins, that way as well, but just not as frequent. And my mom's side was fairly big as well. She had what, another, I think hers were another two brothers and three sisters.
Oh
So
wow.
they had a pretty good sized family. And and it was great when we got together with them. And I probably have a lot, I don't know, more memories, but the times that we spend with them, I'd say were a little bit, I don't want to say more special, but they were less frequent. So I think you kind
S-
of more, you could remember a little bit more specific things with some of that side,
Right.
because it didn't happen a lot.
And because you were traveling to go see
And
them.
you'd have to travel, or they'd have to be traveling out, so it would be like a big event, right? So they would
Right.
be coming in from California, and they were there on business or something, so they'd come by and spend an afternoon or an evening with us. So it's kind of like a big deal, right? So you kind of remember those things, and it was fun.
Yeah. So then at this point, and I want to touch on your mother's history now that we're on this topic, but um was was your mother and father, what, did they separate, or they just kind of decided like, hey, let's just, I want to live over here? Because was it her whole family that got up and moved from Boston
Yes,
greater area to
yeah.
move to California?
So her father, decided, her mom had passed away, like I said, a long time before that, and her father decided they were going to move to California. And I don't know if there's specific reasons,
Hmm.
why he was coming here, but obviously the kids, moved along, with him. They were, even though they might have been a little bit older at the time. Uh, my mom was the oldest on her side, so the others were a little bit younger. So they moved, with my grandfather to California. So, and I know I can vaguely kind of remember as a young kid, my parents, discussing, should they move, to California as well. And I
Okay.
know my mom would have, loved to do that, and my dad wouldn't have liked to do that. So
Yeah.
we ended up obviously staying in
Yeah.
Boston. Yeah.
So then, it sounds like your mother probably raised a lot of her siblings as well during that time, right? Because if her mom passed away at an early
Yeah.
age, she was kind of taking on the mother figure of the household
Yeah.
during that time.
No, absolutely. Especially, her youngest brother is my uncle Ed. Um, and he was, yeah, I don't know, he had to be quite a bit younger than my mom. I mean, so she pretty much, I think, raised him. And I think he didn't think of her as his mother, but, you know, certainly had a fondness
Yeah,
for my mom, because of the role she played in his life.
yeah. And what's your mother's name?
Sadie.
Sadie.
Yeah.
Sadie.
Yeah.
What's her last name?
Chicolo was her maiden name.
Chicola.
Chicolo.
Chicolo.
Yeah.
That's Italian.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Ciccolo.
From
Chicolo.
what area does that trace back to of Italy?
Oh, that was Sicily, so that would have been Palermo.
Okay, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she had her younger brother, which was Ed,
Yeah.
an uncle of yours.
Yeah.
Do you know the other siblings or that she was taking care of as well?
Yeah, so the next uh, one would have been my uncle Leo. So he was a bit, he was probably 8 or so years, I think, older than Ed. So it wasn't quite the same, But obviously they had a great relationship. Then she had her sisters, her sister Dottie, she was always hilarious. One of my favorite aunts. She was pretty funny. And then another sister that they just called Sister.
Oh, really?
I can't remember her real name because it was always just my aunt's sister.
Yeah. Oh, it's aunt sister.
Yeah.
So, do you they moved to California? Did they have a reason? Did your grandfather from your mother's side have a reason to move to California? Did he have family here? Was there opportunities for work?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't. I'm sure there was, but I was too young to
okay.
recall any why they actually moved.
And what part of California did they move to?
So they moved up to L.A.
To
L.A. area.
LA
Yeah,
area.
yeah,
So then, when you were growing up in the Newton area, um, how old were you when she moved with her family here?
when my grandfather
Yeah,
moved
when your grandfather.
yeah, when he moved here, I mean, I had to be, God, I had to be, I'm gonna say maybe 9 or 10 years old or something. I was pretty fairly young.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you would always kind of just, sometimes come and visit over here or
And it was pretty rare. I mean, we didn't really visit. I think the first visit we came out to, we actually had one of my uncles had moved from California. He was actually living in Ohio, so we actually drove, from Boston to Ohio to visit with them. And I was probably, I must say, I was like probably 12 or 13,
Mhm.
for that trip. And then it was sometime after that, maybe another year or two after that, that we actually flew out. My other uncle was living in San Francisco area, so he had moved there. My uncle Ed, so we flew to see Uncle Ed in San Francisco, and that was just my brother Ed and my mom. My dad stayed home and worked.
Yeah. So then you were exposed to California at a pretty young age
A
then,
little
huh?
bit, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What were your thoughts of California?
It was neat. Well, my uncle lived in a beautiful place up in San Francisco area
Mhm.
where you could actually see the Golden Gate Bridge from
Oh
kind of his
wow.
backyard and stuff.
Really?
So yeah, so it was nice.
Mhm.
It wasn't too hard to take. And that uncle, and like I said, he was Ed, who kind of thought of my mom, as his kind of his stepmom, I guess.
He was the youngest.
He was the youngest, and he was a pretty uh, big character. I mean, he was an interesting, fun guy, and so he lived life large.
Mhm.
So I remember, like I said, even though I was probably maybe 15 at the time we came out, I remember him, going out and buying, steaks and barbecuing in the backyard and just having a grand old time. But
Yeah.
he lived an interesting life. He was lived up in Alaska for a while, and
Oh really?
yeah, no, he had done a lot of crazy stuff. Well, I think it was like what, Wyoming for a while. And,
All over the place.
yeah,
Was he the same one that lived in Ohio?
No,
That was
that
Leo?
was that was my uncle Leo. Yeah, with
Okay.
Beth. Yeah.
But you were closer, or your family was probably a little bit closer to your Uncle Ed, right?
You know, yeah, probably maybe a little bit, and just but they probably both of them. Leo, both. I'd say my uncle Leo, my aunt Dottie, and my uncle Ed, we were pretty, pretty close with.
Hmm.
My aunt Sister never seemed to, be around as much as those three kind of. So they seem to be kind of, I'd say, the most, and they're probably the most fun.
Yeah.
So like I said, they knew how to have
They were
a
younger
good
as
time.
well.
A little bit, yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah,
were
yeah,
the
yeah,
youngest
yeah,
uncles and aunts
yeah,
that you had.
exactly. Yeah,
There's always those in the family, right,
yeah,
that you kind of have a closer connection to
yeah,
because they're younger. I mean, I know I have a uncle that I consider him more of a cousin, but he's like 40, right? But I
yeah.
was like, that's like my cousin. I kind of grew up with you as a cousin. Um, but that's really nice. That's fun. And when you guys would travel to California, was it just you and your mom? Your like you said, your dad would stay over there. Your siblings as well would travel.
Yeah, my brother Ed would travel. My other oldest brother Al was probably older at that point. He's probably in college and stuff. So
Oh, okay.
he didn't travel much. So when we came out to California, and one time we visited my aunt Dottie and she lived in Nevada. It was just the three of us. So it was
Yeah.
me, my middle brother, and my mom.
What did your uncles or aunts do for work or
Yeah. So the Uncle Leo who lived in Ohio, he was an executive for was it not Purdue, but another. It's a Foster Farms
Hmm.
that does chicken. You
Hmm.
probably see those in the supermarket. And then my uncle Ed was with IBM,
Oh
so
wow.
he was a salesman with IBM for years and like had a did pretty well, doing that.
Hence why he was in San Francisco area.
That's why he was in San Francisco. That's why he was up in Alaska. That's why he was stationed in I think it was Wyoming for a while. So he wasn't afraid to move around, and he was an interesting character.
So they were all pretty educated. They all went to school. It sounds like for them to have these executive
I don't think
roles.
none of them went to college.
Oh no,
Yeah, no.
really?
My brother Albie was the first of the family. We called him Albie. Al.
Mhm.
He was the first to graduate college in the family.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And where did he? What school did he go to?
He went to Boston College.
Boston.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did he go on later on to do in his life?
He ended up just going into social work. So he
Hmm.
worked as a social worker. Yeah, he was his undergrad was an English major, and then he went to grad school, kind of more for social stuff, and that's what he liked doing. So he kind of ended up being social worker.
Nice.
Was his plan.
Yeah. Um, and so following your brother Albie, did anyone else go to school, or how was the rest of the family after that?
Yeah, so I think after that, it was probably my middle brother, and me were kind of right in there going to, the next ones to go to college. And then there was cousins that were probably just slightly younger than us that went to college. Some have gone on to be doctors and, have
Oh,
some pretty
nice.
serious careers. Yeah.
Yeah. What were your memories of school out in the Newton area?
Yeah, so I went to Catholic school, all my life, all
Hmm.
the way through, from kindergarten all the way up through college. So I went to Boston College as well, to Jesuit school. So kind of grew up in a Catholic system, never went into the public schools.
Well, your brothers as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
the whole family.
the whole family did, yeah. And I don't know if that was, I don't know if it was necessarily a religious choice my parents made, or they just felt the education was going to be better than in the public schools.
And it was probably also a cultural thing too. Maybe was there a lot of Italian
Oh
families at
yeah,
that time
yeah.
sending their kids off to Catholic
Oh
school?
yeah, yeah. I remember my friends, Dino Rossi and Michael DeDuca. So
Everyone from the neighborhood.
everyone, yeah, everyone's from the lake. Everyone was Italian, pretty much. They had
Nice.
some French kids there too,
Yeah.
mostly Italians. Yeah.
But how was that? How was Catholic school? Because I myself went to public schools my whole academic time,
Yeah.
So Catholic schools, was there like more structure? Was there strict
I,
teachers?
it was there was probably a little bit more strict, I would imagine, right? Because you had a different dress code usually and things like that. But um, other than that, I think the only difference really between that and the public schools was it was smaller, right? I mean,
Right.
my graduating class in high school was 50 kids, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really small.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other than that, I think everything else is pretty much the same. Obviously, you took religious classes as well, which you probably don't do in public school.
Right.
Um, But other than that, I don't think there's that much, real difference.
Hmm. You had a good time, good
Yeah.
memories
Yeah,
in
no,
Catholic.
yeah, no, school was fine. Yeah, I didn't yeah, it was probably a good time to it was probably a better time to grow up, right? There was less
Yeah.
crazy stuff going on like there is today.
Did you attend school with any of your brothers during the not during the same grade, obviously, but were you able to
Y-
be in
Barely.
the
So
same schools with him?
yeah, so I think both when I was a freshman in high school, my brother was a senior in high school, and then same thing when I went to college. But college is big, so you didn't ever run into him. But I was a freshman and he was a senior as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Right after graduating high school, what did your brother Albie went into college, and then your second brother, what was
Yeah,
remind me?
yeah, so Ed. Yeah,
Ed.
Ed. Yeah.
Did he also go into school?
Yeah, so he went to all three of us ended up going to Boston College.
Okay.
So, I mean, which is pretty, my parents were able to send three kids to Boston College, like I said, middle class kind of family. So they did it, pretty proud of that. Um, yeah, but my brother Ed went into BC and majored in chemistry.
Okay.
So he went on to become a PhD in chemistry. So
Wow.
so he's a chemist. Went on to teach for a while, and
Became a professor at a
yeah,
school.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. And what did you go into school for?
So I went into school. So undergraduate was physics. So I
Hmm.
was a physics major undergrad, and then I went to Northeastern University to get a graduate degree in electrical engineering. So
What was the drive behind that? Where did you always have an interest in physics
yeah,
or?
yeah, I think I always kind of liked science sort
Mhm.
of stuff as a kid. Science and math. I really liked even through high school. So that was kind of I don't want to say a passion, but an affinity for it.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, and that's why I kind of got drawn to it.
Hmm.
And then, of course, after college, I went to master's degree to part time. So, of course, it was where's the best job opportunity. So even though I had a pretty good job, out of college, getting the electrical engineering degree was going to be a much better than going more physics and things like that. So that's why I chose to go into electrical engineering side
Nice.
of things.
Yeah. Once you're in school, I think everyone has a can attest to this, but you kind of start to shift and change your emphasis in your career,
Yeah.
right? Whether you're switching from physics to electrical engineer or you know s- s- videography to audio engineering or something, there's always kind of a point in time where you realize like, hey, I think I like this more, or there's better opportunity over here than in this career that I initially went in with.
Yeah, exactly.
um so then, during this time, during college, and then you want to go get your master's. You were still living in the Boston area,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, how about your brothers? Were they still living there? Did any of them start moving out of the area?
Yeah, so my oldest brother Al stayed in the general vicinity, so within I don't know, maybe 10 miles of kind of you
Hmm.
know where we were at least during that time period. Then he eventually moved up to New Hampshire, still not that far away. My brother Ed, you know, stayed in New England all his life, so he's still there.
Okay, and then you obviously
Came
um,
to California.
came to
Yeah,
California. What brought that move um,
it
to
was
you?
it was work. I
It
mean,
was work.
it
Okay.
was work that took me out here. But Beth is from San Diego. Well, she's from Poway.
Mhm.
So, I mean, after we got married, she moved back to Boston, and then I had the opportunity to come back to San Diego. So it was a pretty easy decision to make.
Yeah. And at that time, what were you working in that brought you out here?
So I was in the wireless telecommunications.
Okay.
Yeah. So I came out to work for Qualcomm.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Okay. And then Qualcomm was based here in San
San
Diego,
Diego. Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
they're headquartered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at the time I moved out, they only had San Diego.
They
Yeah.
did,
I
right?
don't think they had any other, office locations.
Right.
Yeah.
And had you ever been to San Diego before that?
Yeah.
You have.
Yeah. So I had been to San Diego, several times before. I actually the job I had back in Boston, I would come out to San Diego to work at there's this place called Martin Marietta.
Mhm.
Now it's what is it, Lockheed Martin.
Mhm.
So we would do work for them. So I'd come out not not a reasonable amount of time.
Mhm.
So I liked San Diego. That's obviously that's how I met Beth,
Right.
out here as well. Um, but I really like San Diego, and I think I remember one of the first times I came to San Diego, just thinking like getting off the plane. It's like wow, this it just felt comfortable.
This
It
is
just felt
this is
like
California, what you see on TV,
yeah,
right? It
yeah, and
felt
it
comfortable.
just I felt just comfortable here. So it like I said, it wasn't a hard decision to
Yeah.
when I had the opportunity to come to do it.
Nice. Well, I always say this. I think San Diego is the best city in the United States, and I haven't been to all of them, but it doesn't take much to realize that San Diego is probably one of the
It's a
best
pretty
cities.
special place. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, there's snow not too far away, at 2 hours away if you really want to go
yeah.
to it, and there's a desert maybe an hour and a half away, mountains an hour or two away, and then you have the coast, the ocean just
Yeah.
30 minutes away.
And yeah, and the weather's obviously just,
Yeah.
it's about as perfect as you can get, I think.
Right. So you start you start moving out to California a little bit, but I still want to stay on your family a little bit just so we get all the
Yeah.
information. Your dad during this time, he's still back in the Boston area. In Newton, he stay during n- in Newton during his whole
Yeah, yeah,
life?
yeah, so him and my mom stayed in, in their house, the same house I grew up in, till, kinda the very end until they were basically forced to go into assisted living and things like that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, they stayed there for the duration.
Nice. And your mother as well?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So they were yeah, I think that was, yeah, I don't wanna say it was hard on them when I left, but it was certainly, yeah.
You're the one that
Yeah, I was the one that yeah, just
you're the
packed
bird
up and
that got
left.
the feathers
Yeah,
and started
exactly.
flying,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But I'm sure they were also very
I
happy.
think they were, but I know when when I told them I decided I was moving, they were not. They were sad. I mean,
Yeah. But, ultimately, that's life, and we all go through, moving out and, growing up out of our, parents' house
yeah.
and stuff like that, or even just the area too. Um, but how was the end of their life, or I'm not sure if your mother's still alive, but
No,
or
no, yeah, they both passed away. My mom passed away was about a year and a half before my dad.
okay,
So they were, it was they remained pretty healthy right up until kind of the end.
hmm
So when things kind of happened, it happened fairly quick, which is probably not a bad,
yeah.
not a bad thing.
Was it
Um,
also a fall or anything like that?
no, it was just kind of I think it started to be old age, right? It
Yeah.
was things start kind of failing, and that was it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it
but
was pretty natural.
yeah, it
It was
was,
natural.
and both of them had like I said, it's probably like a better way to be like so mentally, they were always had their faculties about them.
Good.
So they didn't have dementia. They were lucky. No, they didn't have Alzheimer's, things like that. So that was pretty lucky. And then their bodies just eventually gave out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they were able to stay together till the very end.
yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
even when they went into assisted living, they were together in
mhm.
assisted living. My mom wasn't there very long, but but they were together during that time period.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice. They were able to be with each other. They both knew
yeah,
that, they were towards the end of their life, and I mean it's natural, right? I
yeah,
mean we're all going to come to the end
yeah,
of our life, and it's fortunate that they
yeah.
were there for each
No,
other,
exactly. No, I
supporting
think
each
yeah.
other.
No, I think it's it was probably not a bad way to kinda end things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And what year was that they passed away?
So my dad was what, 2011? It was on New Year's Eve, so, he just made it I think it was 2011, so it was, he just made it into the new year and then, like, passed away shortly, after that. My mom was, what, 2008, I think it was, so, like, 3 years, I guess it was before.
Mhm. Was it a weird question, but was their death anytime near the time of their birth? Like
Um
month, days?
nah, my both my mom and dad were born in February,
Mm,
um, and my mom passed away. I think it was in April. So, and my dad would have been January. So, on either,
okay.
just a little bit on either side. Yeah,
Yeah. Reason why I ask is because people usually tend to pass away during their
it
birth
it
month
it does seem to
actually.
happen more often, though.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
happens more often. Um but No, that's nice. And so your father passed away 2011, and your mother passed away before that,
Yeah, yeah. It's like I think it was 2008. It's kind
2008.
of funny because everyone like I don't want to say looks at me funny when I can't really remember, but I don't. And I know a lot of people know that when their parents and all sorts of people the exact dates they died.
Right.
And the only reason I remember my dad's is because he was it
New
was right on New
Year's.
Year's Eve.
Right.
But I just don't. I don't know. For me, I've never those dates don't matter to me. It was
Yeah.
kind of the rest of the life that was what mattered. So those aren't important days for me.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm weird because I think that way.
No,
But
no, I think everyone has their own opinion on it. You don't want to attribute that day to like the last day on earth,
yeah,
right?
I mean,
And
even
some,
yeah, exactly. Even my oldest brother, yeah, I remember the day it happened, but I don't remember the date. Right? It's just to me, I don't know.
yeah,
It's not a date that
you don't
sticks in
want
my
to
mind.
keep
Yeah,
that. Yeah, you don't
yeah.
want to
It's
keep that
just
as a memory of
yeah,
like this was a day.
yeah,
As long as we can always like recognize them and
yeah,
keep them in our memories, and that's all that really
yeah.
matters.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So then your parents passing away, obviously you were living here in California already, but tell us a little bit about your experience when you got to California. What year was the year that you first came over here?
So that was 95. So I
95.
came here in like the fall of 95.
Is that when you relocated over
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when I came that we came here to live, packed up. We were actually hoping to, we wanted to drive across country and kind of move across country. Uh, but unfortunately the company wanted me to get out here as fast as I could for work.
Hmm.
So we, ended up just flying out and shipping all our things out and didn't get the experience that we wanted to for driving across country.
Yeah.
But it was great. We got here, settled in pretty quickly, bought a house in Scripps Ranch. Not too long after
Hmm.
we had moved out. So yeah, it was nice.
Nice. And you moved out here alone
No, so Beth, yeah,
with Beth.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I
So
thought you
yeah,
met Beth here.
no, no. So I did meet her here when I was doing work out here, for the company I worked at before, obviously coming out for Qualcomm. When I was doing
Oh,
a lot of work here, we met here, dated long distance for whatever 6 or 9 months,
and then she moved over there.
and then got married. She moved back to Boston, so lived in Boston for 3 years. We were married in '92, so then she lived in Boston for 3 years, and then we moved out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So now that we're talking about Beth, one of my favorite people as well, this I'm sure she'll be fine with you sharing, but share with us a little bit how you two met. What year was it? I mean, maybe if you remember the year, but where did you meet?
So that was it. So that was she was working as a temp at Martin Marietta.
Hmm.
So she was a temp there at Martin Marietta. I was out there doing engineering work for just the company there in the same group that she was a temp for. She was
Hmm.
taking over for. So it's kind of a coincidence. Her sister-in-law was working as an admin assistant for one of the general managers or one of the people there. And then her sister-in-law got assigned to a different job for a little while, so they needed someone to take over. So they just asked Beth to kind of stand in as a temp job there. So she happened to be working there when I was out one time, and you know we just started talking, and you know and I think
Something told you, who is this girl? Why?
yeah,
Who?
and I think
She's
it's
new.
and there's always people there that said, "Oh, you guys should, get together." So I started talking to her, and she, I think it was the next day after we were talking, she made some cookies and
Oh,
brought
nice,
cookies in. So I sat by her desk and had cookies for a while, and
nice.
and then we just started kind of talking long distance. After I had to come back to
Yeah.
Boston,
You texted her, or you called her. Hey,
yeah,
when am I gonna get some of those cookies again?
yeah, exactly, yeah. Because it was different then, though, right? So
Right.
there wasn't a lot of emails. You
Right.
could do a little email, but you didn't text message, right? And to call someone long distance, right? That was expensive. So,
And this is calls probably back in the
so it's
house
probably not.
phones
Yeah,
or
no, exactly. So this was like 19. So that would have been like 19, 90, 91.
you
Kind of
were
time
you
frame.
were pretty you guys were pretty young at that time, right? Like,
She was.
yeah.
So I mean, I was 30 when we got married. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not too much older, are you? Like,
So
I don't
so
know.
what am I? I'm 5 years older than she is.
Okay. Yeah. It's not.
It's not that
Yeah.
much.
It's
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
much. Not much at all,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Okay. So this time, and you guys started dating and all that. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then went back and lived over there. So you were just kind of traveling back and forth,
Yeah,
um, up until you got a
yeah.
full time
Got an
position
offer.
over
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I got an
Yeah,
offer for a job out here, and then we just packed up our bags and
and been here
left.
ever
Yeah,
since.
yeah, exactly.
Nice. And how was your time here in Scripps Ranch, and how, what other places did you live?
It was great. So, we first lived in just an apartment in La Jolla when we first moved out,
Mhm.
and then we moved into the Scripps Ranch house, which is great. I mean, Scripps Ranch is a beautiful place. It was a new house. It was a little whole new community, um, perfect location. It was really nice. And then, we decided. I don't know. I can't remember. I guess this is probably like in '99. We bought a property in Poway. So we
Mhm.
bought land and we built a house, in Poway. And then we lived in Poway for, what was it, 20, I guess like 20 years, 21 years.
Is this in Madeiras?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it was in Madeiras, over on the second hole. Lived there for a long time and then decided, well, time to do something a little bit different, a little smaller,
Yeah.
a little less maintenance, a little easier to kind of work with, no more two-story houses. So we bought another piece of property in Poway and started planning for the house we're currently building. So,
Nice. Yeah. So that's the one in Poway that I want to go see.
yeah, exactly.
I
You
want
were
to
up
go check
there.
out.
Yeah, you went up and checked out
Yeah.
the lot. I think there was nothing.
No, there
It was
was no
just pure.
grading,
There was
nothing.
nothing going on there
Yeah,
at
I
that
think there
point.
was
Yeah,
maybe just a
yeah,
like markings on
yeah,
the grass, or
yeah,
on the ground or whatever.
yeah.
Nice. So I know we kind of covered a lot, and it went pretty quick actually. Is there anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, I just one other kind of, not really a story, but yeah, it kind of goes back to kind of, I think, the whole family piece and the food and kind of the Italian culture and and even like traditions. But my mom and dad, you know, they had, I'll call it the coveted, Italian sauce recipe, the tomato sauce
Mhm.
recipe, and they wouldn't give that to anyone.
No, they
And
don't.
and
Huh?
even like, Beth, obviously Beth's a good cook, and when we were dating, she'd ask, "Oh, could she have the recipe?" Because she wanted to make it. And my mom would kind of just make up an excuse, like, "Oh, no, yeah, yeah, I'll get it for you. We'll give it to you." So after we were married, they actually showed up at the house with all the ingredients. So then it was okay to teach Beth,
Oh,
how to
really?
make the Italian sauce.
It was a
So
very
it's a
coveted.
yeah. I mean, I don't know why, but it was a very coveted thing.
Yeah.
And now, but they didn't teach any of the other actually, daughter-in-laws
Oh,
how to
really?
make it. They only taught Beth. So they came over, showed her exactly how to make it, and Beth makes it and gives it out for everyone to eat at the time. But we're
Nice.
but we're you know we're a little bit more liberal with the recipe now because we
Yeah.
we think it should live on.
Hmm.
So just like some of the traditions that we've tried to keep going, like, the typical, it's an Italian Christmas Eve dinner, where it's the seven fishes. So Beth and I try and keep that kind of tradition going for, obviously her family now because we're out here on the West Coast. Um, but there's, I think, once again, food stayed to be,
Yeah.
an important part of things.
Of the family.
Yeah.
Nice. And I remember you telling me about a dish that you guys do during Christmas. It was like a something salad,
Oh,
like an anchovy
no, so
and
it's a tuna
tuna
anchovy pasta.
tuna
It's
anchovy pasta.
and we used to have it as a kids, but you'd only have it on Christmas Eve.
Hmm.
And I don't know why, because it's really kind of a simple, easy dish, but that's it. And even now, we won't fix it any other time. It's just that's one of the Christmas Eve dishes.
Hmm.
It's just tuna anchovy and pasta. It's pretty simple.
So I actually want to touch on the tomato sauce thing, because I've seen and I've heard that that's a very secret. Like every family has their own recipe, and it's secretive. It's important to each family. So do you remember all the times, or can you tell your mom's tomato
Oh
sauce
yeah.
from any other?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
was there always like was there always people asking for your mom's tomato
Yeah.
sauce?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. No, it was, that, but she, like I said, she wouldn't give name. But yeah, I always could remember. There's a lot of times, like usually probably on the weekends, I guess. There'd be the big pot with, she'd make a big, huge pot of tomato sauce and meatballs, and I'd love to go over and just get a piece of bread and put sauce on the bread, and
Yeah.
that was a meal. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I know. I've seen shows, and the Italian families are not sharing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, it's funny, because it was the you know
Something so simple
it,
can be something
yeah.
so.
And like I said, now that we think the tradition needs to live on. So like I said, my Beth will give the recipe. She won't give it to everyone, but
No,
she'll
yeah.
give the recipe out. And it's pretty funny because the people she gives it out to are just so grateful for it, and they'll like serve it to their kids or grandkids, and they said
Yeah.
all the kids just love it.
I gotta try this tomato sauce
Oh.
because the only tomato sauce that I have is the one my mom makes, and we're not Italian, we're Mexican, so we get it from a can, we get it from the grocery store.
Yeah, I know it's a for Beth to make it, it's kind of a not an all day event, but
No, yeah,
it's a good portion of the day. Yeah,
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 yeah. You gotta
yeah,
let it simmer. You gotta let it, you gotta
yeah.
stir it in the
And you gotta have
pot.
the meatballs. You gotta put the meatballs and
Yeah.
the pepperoni and yeah.
So I want to ask you something. Since we're nearing the end of the podcast, what is your favorite Italian dish?
My favorite Italian dish. I
Hmm.
mean, probably just yeah.
Or we can.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I have a specific favorite. I would probably just say, uh, just pasta and and meatballs, just spaghetti and meatballs, or even ravioli. Raviolis,
Hmm.
but anything with that tomato sauce would be acceptable.
Would you say that it's also one of your favorites? Your mom's your favorite dishes from your mom
Yeah,
is like a simple as
yeah,
spaghetti and meatballs
eh,
or
yeah,
ravioli.
and that tomato sauce. I mean,
Okay.
it's the tomato sauce is what makes it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna start asking everyone that comes on the podcast now, what's your favorite dish?
Yeah,
Because I think it's especially because you mentioned that that food is bringing together family. Especially in your family, it's always kind of brought everyone together and it keeps them close. Um, I'm curious to know what their favorite dish is.
that's funny. Yeah, no, it's I'll tell you what. I'll tell Beth next time when we come out and visit you at the new job. I'll tell Beth to bring some
Yeah,
frozen tomato sauce.
some frozen tomato
Yeah.
sauce. Yeah. Um, well, again, man, I mean, we're nearing towards the end of the podcast. It went by pretty fast. This is already over an hour. Um, do you want to share anything with the audience? I mean, you can share this to family members that may be listening, friends that may be listening, or just strangers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just thank you for, for having me on and telling this story. It's I don't know. For me it's just kind of it's life, right? It's just what happened.
Yeah,
It's just not a, so the fact that someone's interested in it, I think is really,
yeah,
special to me. So I really
yeah,
appreciate it. And yeah, definitely going to have family listen to this, and coworkers, and
yeah,
see
definitely.
what they think. You may get some people asking to come on your show.
No, I would love that. I would love that. I mean, this is still very early on in the podcast, but I would love that. And again, man, thank you for always being such good, to us over at Avant when I
Yeah.
was there. Beth always, making the cookies. I would love to get Beth on the podcast as well because
She has a she has an interesting family history.
she is Irish and Italian, right?
She's Irish. I think it's German, Irish, English, some American Indian,
Hmm.
and she's been able to trace her history pretty far back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what she's been able to find for her family.
Oh, we would love
Yeah,
that. We
yeah,
would love to hear all that. Again, everyone, thank you for tuning in today in today's episode here with Steve Caliguri. Um, Appreciate you all listening. And if you ever want to reach out to Steve, reach out to me. If you have any questions, you have any commonalities with him and his culture, and you want to know, maybe you want to reach out and get that tomato sauce ingredients or recipe. You got to go through me first.
yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone. And this is a Lineage Legacy podcast.